Miniature painters have a problem. A hobby that was about using paints on your miniatures, for some, quickly turned into a hobby about paint collecting. Eat shit, Pokemon cards. With new paint products being promoted all the time, no wonder people buy too many paints. But today, I'm gonna put an end to this. Instead of using overwhelming amount of paints, I'm gonna prove to you you don't need that many by using just a few of them. But then, if the colors are limited, how do you make it interesting? I'm gonna give you all the secrets while painting this model. And we are only gonna use various shades of red. Even this pink is technically considered as a shade of red. Because just like brown is simply dark orange, I'm gonna give you a second to really process this. Brown is just dark orange. Well, pink is technically just light red. And I know what you're thinking. I am using an airbrush. Maybe you don't have one. Just use a white rattle can. Doesn't really matter. We just need it for better coverage. Okay, now let me introduce you to our limited palette. It consists of various reds, as well as black, and various lighter colors. This is all we need to put the paint industry into a total disarray. If 8 paints is all I need to paint a model well, imagine what you can do with like 20 or 30 paints. Right now, paint producers are shitting their pants. Or shitting their paints. Before showing you how to make it interesting with this limitation, we gotta quickly block in all the colors. And I know what you're thinking. What the hell is this phallic looking object right next to her? Well, to put your pattern-seeking mind at ease, she is sitting on a hand. And that is just a thumb. As I block in the rest of the colors, I also sketch the values. Value refers to how bright or dark something is. And this brings up an important point. Everyone is so obsessed with picking the right color schemes, there are all these tools and ideas how to pick the right colors, but that's not what's really important. Color schemes this or color schemes that, that, we could turn the video black and white and it wouldn't matter. We are not gonna do that, but we could. You know what, it, we ball! Just like that, even without any colors, you can see what's brighter and what's in shadow. Representing the values accurately is the most important thing in mini painting, because that's how you portray light. And because it doesn't have to involve any colors, you could just paint it in black and white and still get something rather appealing. So, if you really wanted to, you could just paint with black and white and it would be fine. We don't have to do that. We could, but maybe that's a bit too extreme. So yeah, value is the most important element. But wait, there's more! One of the other things you can do to make your minis interesting without using a gajillion of paints is work with saturation. Okay, well, we gotta turn the color back on, so let's do that, I guess. If something is saturated, it means it's very colorful. Like, even when you look at my palette, compare this juicy red to this desaturated pink. The red is quite vivid, and the gray is just kinda hanging in there. Now, not everything has to be super saturated, although if you are a cultured fan of Clown Fiesta, sure. But you can selectively make certain parts more saturated to make them stand out more. For example, what is the most saturated part of this model so far? Yeah, it's the hair. I even added blush to her face to make this part especially colorful. If I made the rest of the model just as saturated, it wouldn't really matter though. But when you compare it to all the gray and pink around her, it draws your attention. To work with saturation, you actually do need paints other than black and white. But it still doesn't mean you need plenty of them. As I mentioned, you could have like a range of 30 paints and it would be enough. As long as you have some decent representation of the color wheel and mix in some black and white, maybe some browns and skin tones, you're good. On this miniature, if I want something saturated, I don't mix anything into the red to keep it pure. On the other hand, by mixing in black, white or gray, it becomes more muted. And you need both on your miniature. For some colors to feel saturated, others need to be less saturated. However, just using value and saturation is not enough for me. So let's progress a bit further so I can show you some other aspects. Now, since I wanna get to the other aspects, we made quite a jump forward. But if you wanna know how I painted anything in particular, there will be a full tutorial on Patreon, just check the link in the description. You also get access to our community, which is really nice. Anyway, as I'm painting the leather belt, still using the original 8 colors mind you, how is it different? Well, aside from being darker, it has different texture. By rendering materials in a different way, you can achieve wildly different results. Now, of course, there isn't always the opportunity to do that. But for example, you could easily imagine the fabric being different. It could have been stippled, or it could form a pattern like the fabric you see right here. And yet again, I didn't need any additional colors to paint various textures. Even as I paint the phallus, I mean the hand, it's not super smooth to make it look like made of stone. Even this element is contextual. Maybe the stone looks quite smooth by itself, but compared to her skin, not as much. And because it's supposed to be just a part of the surroundings, it's pretty desaturated. At this point I can say that limiting your palette like this is not only great for your wallet, but also your sanity. It's true that for some reason the mini painting industry is obsessed with color recipes and new paint products. This is very different from traditional 2D art. And using a limited color palette like this is very frequent in traditional art. By limiting your choices, you don't have to think about them too hard, and also the result is more harmonious. And if you are still not convinced, we had a challenge to paint with a limited palette in our Patreon community. And what you see on screen right now is the work of some of our members. Even with just a few colors, it looks great. So we talked about value, which is how bright or dark something is. We went over saturation, which is how vivid or muted the colors are. Then we mentioned how texture depicts what the material looks like, and now let's add another piece of the puzzle. Skipping forward again, you'll see me paint blood at the bottom. And because blood is liquid, it's usually glossy, unless it's dry. So this feature is called finish. And I know what you're thinking. Zumikito, this is just texture with extra steps, you motherfucker! Well, not really. When we talk about texture, we talk about what the material is made of. When we talk about finish, we talk about how it reflects light. For example, if you painted wooden planks, you would paint it with wood grain. However, you could also polish the planks and they would be glossy. It's the same material, but it reflects light differently. And here, on this model, you see various levels of finish. The blood is very glossy, the skin is a bit satin, and the stone and the leather are fairly matte. Together, using all of these elements, you can achieve something really nice. No need to buy that new hot paint wrench or worry too much about color schemes. However, do you remember how at the start of the video I sketched the entire miniature? That's because it makes the process much quicker without losing quality. So check out this video next, because it'll make your painting process way faster as well. And see you there!